Hey everyone, this is Ete with another episode. I hope you're all doing well. I've got Dan Stead here of Nature's Balance here in Midway, Utah. In a second, I'm about to play you our interview with Dan. And, what an incredible story, things I didn't even know about him till after the interview. But Dan was in corporate America and a series of events in the economy. He lost his job. He was unemployed. And it's the story of how he rebuilt with children at home, with mouths to feed. He rebuilt his career, he rebuilt everything, and turned it into a successful company in an industry he knew nothing about. Just a great story of hope for anyone who is going through a hard time, down on their luck or unemployment times. You can rebuild. It's not easy. And Dan will share with us in depth a little bit about that struggle and leaning in and relying on his family, working together and coming close, and then ultimately building a successful company. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm here on another episode with a special guest, a good friend of mine. His name is Dan Stead. Dan, you want to say hi?
Good morning. It's great to be here.
It is a little early, so our voices might not be as enthusiastic as they would be in the afternoon. Dan, let me tell you a little bit about Dan, and then we're going to jump in, and I have some questions and some thoughts as I've been thinking about his company, and I've come up with some thoughts that I want to discuss, and I think you may find interesting in today's story. So Dan owns a company locally. We're here in Heber, Utah. As you know, that's where we're doing the show from. And Dan lives here in a little area, right? It's called Midway, so it's part of the Heber Valley. And he has a pest control company that services Heber Valley. It goes up into the Park City area. It goes into Salt Lake, and then the Utah County area. So just kind of this whole northern Utah area. And I want to tell you a little bit about him from what I know. So correct me if you hear anything that I'm way out of line here. But so I met Dan about, 7 or 8 years ago. We were both coming from out of state. We're both transplants. And we both came here because of the same friend, our friend John. And that's how we got here. And the thing about Dan, some of the things that I find interesting in the story is he's not coming from a typical background of where pest control guys come from. Especially, I know a lot of guys who own pest control companies throughout the country. And Dan's just a totally different breed. And I think, in my opinion, that's what makes his company so great. I think, generally when you think of the word pest control or pest control company, you don't always get the warmest feelings. I know I asked my wife, I said, what's the first thing that comes to you when you think of the word pest control? And she goes, slimy sales guys door to door. Okay. So that's and it's funny. I had the same reaction. I also think of larger companies that have images of killing bugs, just as it's not the warmest industry. But what's interesting about Nature's Balance is, for whatever reason, when I think of it and even just saying Nature's Balance, I get a different feeling. I don't get my typical pest control feeling. I don't get that feeling of slimy, greasy sales guys or pushy over sales. And then what's even more interesting is you learn and you get to meet Dan, and I've met his team. I've had some of his guys come and do work at my place. I'm impressed with the team. I'm impressed with the company. I'm impressed with the brand and the overall energy feel that comes off of Nature's Balance. Dan, can you tell me what is it? Why am I getting that vibe from Nature's Balance? What makes you not what comes to mind when people think pest control? Why are you different? I'm trying to figure it out.
When I started doing this, I made a decision consciously that I wanted to be different. I didn't want to be like the rest of the guys. I wanted to do something to differentiate our business from everybody else. And the thing that I saw that was the biggest differentiator was the feeling that people got when they had an interaction with a company. I've had door-to-door guys come and knock on my door, and it left me with a feeling that I didn't like. I've had people in my home that kind of creep me out. And so my goal from the very beginning was to make this industry look a little different with my company, that people had a different feeling about who they were dealing with, and that they were comfortable that we were providing a valuable service at a fair price, and that we weren't motivated by sales. We were motivated by actually helping solve a problem.
So I just have to promise you guys, I did not ask him that question in advance, because that is the biggest thing for me. So that means you're doing a good job. If that's what you were looking to search out for, and here I am, just another business in town, I have always felt that way. I think you've nailed it on the head. Tell me, is there anything else that besides just having, so you have this vision, you said, I'm going to set out to build something that is different, that feels different, that people want to trust and come. What else is behind that? How else are you maintaining that? How do you make that? There's one thing to have the vision, which is great, but then you actually do it. How do you do that? Why do I feel good when I meet you and meet your team? What's going on there?
Well, it comes back to me as the leader of the company having to choose people who have a skill set and have a certain way of looking at life. And we're not out for the money. We're out to perform a service and build relationships with customers that last for sometimes many years. I mean, we've had some customers that have been with us from the beginning, 8 or 10 years now. And it's a great relationship. And so that's what we're after. We're not a flash in the pan, try to sell you something quick, make a buck, and then move on. We want to build long-term relationships.
Okay, and I love it, and I can feel it. And I like that you said it starts at the top, because I believe that the CEO or the leader, and I like that you use the word leader, the leader of the company really sets the tone, and everything comes from him or her down. Let me ask you this question. There's a phrase that you hear in business often, and that phrase is, it's not personal, it's business. Do you agree with that?
With us and the nature of our business, it does become personal. We are in people's personal space. If you think about how many people would you let into your home to go into your bedroom, your closet, private places in your home, we stress the fact that people have to trust us. And it is personal. Because if we're not delivering the commitments that we make, and we're not honoring people's personal space and respectful of what's going on in their lives, then we're missing the mark. So it is both business and personal. Sure, we run a business, we have to make a profit to succeed, but it does become very personal with the clients that we service.
Awesome. So let me ask you this, continuing on that, one more question even deeper is, how do you pass that on? And this question is really for the other entrepreneurs who are listening in town. How do you get your team to buy in and have the vision that you just said, that it is personal, you care about each client, you're grateful for them? How do you get your team to really live that way? Because it's a struggle. Anyone knows managing teams, it's a struggle to have everyone have the same buy-in, the same value system.
That's so true. I mean, so my approach is hire for character, train for aptitude, for what you need them to do. You can train a person to do a lot of different skills, but you can't train attitude. So I hire for attitude and character, and then the rest of it's just reinforcement. I constantly beat the drum. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we commit to do, and hopefully they embrace that and live it as they go out to work every day.
Awesome. I love it. And I actually have a very similar philosophy, which is hiring on character. I love that. It's not so much about their services, because we can train them to do the services, exactly. Especially in the service-based industry. Nothing's really too complicated. No. And so, but you're right. It's hard to find someone who cares, who has a good attitude, who is kind, clean-cut, etc. Let's back up a second. I want to ask you this. So part of my introduction, I said you came from a different place. So Dan originally was in Houston, Texas. So 15 years in Houston. And he was in, and I may get this wrong, but I think he was more in a corporate America type setting. I mean, right. You were behind a computer in a corporate setting. For how long?
I worked for Hewlett-Packard for 10 years, and I was in a training and development, executive development role, and very corporate.
So that just, to me, that's just interesting, because most guys in pest control don't come from that.
That's correct.
Some people would even say that's a backwards move. So I want to ask you, tell us a little bit how you got from corporate America at HP in Houston to a small a pest control business in Utah, and tell us, is it a backwards move, or how has it been for you?
Ete, it's not an uncommon question. People ask me that all the time. Okay. What in the world were you thinking? And I'll tell you, I never in my wildest dreams imagined that I'd be living in Heber Valley, Utah.
Me neither.
Owning a pest control company at this point in my life. But you know what? It's a blessing. I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. How I got here is totally random. So I took another job that I was given an opportunity to take on a leadership role in a company in Park City. It was a startup, and that was right about the time the economy started to fail. And the company did fail because we couldn't get funding. All the financing dried up. At that time, the market was kind of a rough place to be. So I was out without work for about 18 months, looking for anything that I could find that fit into my wheelhouse of experience and skills, and no one was hiring, especially not somebody my age, because I at that point was about 50.
Okay.
And so, It wasn't a great job market. And so I started to look around and say, I'd always had in the back of my mind, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had started off in sales, moved into a training role, and then from there moved into more of a development executive role. And I always kind of had in the back of my mind, I'd love to be my own business owner, because I'd always kind of been on this sales side of things saying, I know I can make things happen. I've got skills from my education and from other things that I've done in business that I think I can run a business. But I couldn't put my finger on exactly what that business was. And the opportunity came along through our mutual friend, John, where he had about 100 clients, and he was looking to make a change in his life and downsize a little bit, and said, hey, I don't think this is what you're interested in, but I'm looking to sell this business. And at first I said, nah, that's not for me. That's not my thing. And I started to do a lot of research into the industry and what was happening, what kind of people were in the industry. And as I looked at it, I said, this is an opportunity. I can make a difference here, because I think there is a stigma and there is room for a huge change and to revolutionize some way things are done in the industry. So I made the leap. I bought John out. And from there, I bought a truck, and I was off to the races.
And then just began to grow and grow into what it is now. I want to ask you a question on that. You said, so here you are, like you said, this is owning a pest control company is probably one of the furthest things. I bet you had never even thought of it before at this time. So you're 18 months of unemployment after moving to Park City. In this corporate America, we have the economy's dropping. There's a lot of issues. I imagine I have been unemployed for a time in my life, about 12 months, and it was awful. It took. I barely survived it on a personal, on an emotional level. It really wrecked me, because I just felt like, what am I doing for my family? Anyway, so here you are in some type of mindset. I bet, were you anywhere near that? Was it
very stressful time? Yeah, okay. We had all of our children at home.
Wow.
We had 4 teenagers.
So bills are high.
Huge expenses and very little income. So I did work. It wasn't a career. It was a job at the time, just to try to put some food on the table. But it was a stressful time for sure.
Here you are, this very stressful time. You got all these mouths to feed. You don't have an option to not bring in some type of money over. You can only last that way so long. And then you get introduced to an idea that is nothing inside your wheelhouse, nothing. You have had nothing to do with pest control your whole life. And you said you took a leap. I'm just trying to put myself in those shoes. Why would you even say yes? How could that even be considerable in your mind? I mean, when you first, because you said you first heard about it, you're like, no. And then eventually you started researching and said, this could be good.
Well, it comes down to a feeling that I had in my gut. Okay. And it was a pretty strong confirmation, hey, you've got no other options right now. So we took the last little bit of savings that we had and dumped it into the business. And it was one of those situations where it's sink or swim. Necessity is the mother of invention. Failure was not an option.
Right.
And so I was going to do everything and anything it took to make this work. And, I'll be very honest, it was pretty lean at first. And there were some sacrifices made. Worked long hours, really long hours. And you know that. Yeah. You've been in business yourself. So it was just a commitment to make it work. And, there's some mistakes made along the way, but overall we've been very successful.
Was there a time after, 18 months goes by, you buy the company you said roughly 100 clients, so that's a smaller size company. You have to build this thing to feed your family. Tell me about the next year or two. Was there a time when you wanted to give up? Like, did it ever – I know you say it wasn't an option, but tell me. I mean, that just –
Oh, absolutely. The learning curve was so steep. Think about it. I had no knowledge of this industry. I didn't know products. I didn't know systems. I didn't know much of anything. And so luckily, thank goodness we have the internet. I was able to go and research and learn and study as much as I could. I picked other people's brains. I just was a sponge about everything I could learn. And like I said, it wasn't without mistakes. We certainly made some mistakes. But luckily, we had some very loyal clients that were patient, and we proved we would make it right. So that was a commitment I had. If I can't make it right the first time, give us a chance. We'll come back and we will make it right. And so that was kind of our motto is, we're going to figure this out. And that's what we had to do. And it's been like I said, a huge learning curve, but a great, great experience, a great ride.
Wow. So incredible story, corporate America, economy drops, unemployed 18 months, basically takes over a pest control company with no experience, no knowledge of products or anything, and builds it into something awesome. I love this, and I hope for anyone's listening out there, if you're in that place where you have this vision, you have this dream, and you're unemployed. One thing I'm getting is there's a lot of hope that comes off of this story. There's a lot of hope, and like you say, it takes a leap of faith. And I hope if you're in that situation, feeling like you need to give up or you just can't handle it, I hope this story can bring you some hope that you can get through it. Dan's done it. He's sitting right here. He takes care of his family. He's doing it. And so it's just incredible. Okay, so Dan, I want to ask you this. What could you say to someone maybe here in the Heber Valley or someone local that wanted to get into business like yourself? You kind of had this itching to be an entrepreneur all those years, and you literally were forced into it. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, maybe the top one or two lessons that you could share with a young person?
I think there's a few lessons. There's actually more than a few, but I'll give you kind of my top two or three. One is you've got to believe in yourself. As hard as this was, as difficult as I, found this issue, my circumstances, I believed that I could do it. I believed that it wasn't above me figuring it out. And so I just made that commitment up front that failure wasn't an option. So believe in yourself is number one. The second lesson that I've learned is other people want to help you succeed. There's a lot of people that really want to see the little guy win. They really want to help somebody who's trying to figure it out. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask other people, hey, how would you approach this? I'm dealing with this issue. And there are people who've been in other kinds of businesses who have great insights that I wouldn't be shy about asking. And then probably the last one is, if you've got family, just include the family. I mean, this became truly a family business. My wife, my kids were all involved in helping in a variety of different ways. And so, don't be thinking you've got to carry the whole load yourself. Involve the family. And it created a great bond with me and my kids and my wife through this pretty tough time.
I love that. And I think I agree with that. I think one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking and we were talking about this story is being an entrepreneur, a business owner, it is a leader in anything. It's a lonely place. Being a leader is just lonely because at the end of the day, your team gets to go home and anything that went wrong, it's on you. Right. And that's the one thing I always try to, if someone says, hey, what's it like being in business? Because, everyone has this dream of working on a computer from a beach and no boss telling me what to do. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if that's a good enough reason to get into business. But the one thing I never have found a way to tell them is the pressure and the stress that's caused. It just doesn't go away.
That's right.
And so I love what you're saying. Share it with your family. Share it with people. Don't be alone in this. Is there anything else that's helped you on a personal level deal with the pressure and to survive all the chaos that a business can bring?
One of the things I learned early on is that burnout is a real thing. And you have to create boundaries. As a business owner, you have to create some limits. I could have on my website, we're open 24/7 and try to respond to every single call that comes in. But is that realistic? Can I really do the kind of quality work that I want to do with those kind of hours as a solo operator? No, it wasn't possible. So I had to make some decisions early on to say, you know what, I've got to have some me time, some family time, and honor that and create those boundaries because if you don't, you will burn out.
I love it. And that's not a normal conversation you have with entrepreneurs. It's usually go, more money, grow. And Dan saying, whoa, put the brakes on it. I can only do so much. And if I burn out, I'm not valuable to my company. And I'm the same way. We got to a point where during the busy season, for those of you who know I have a lawn company, my wife books a trip, a 3 or 4 day weekend every other week. Could be, St. George or somewhere. And when the time comes for me to go, I sometimes will fight her. But every time when she forces me to take that break, I come back recharged, and like you said, I'm just better for my company.
And a lot of that comes back to the vision that you have as a leader. Where do you want your company to be? So for me, it wasn't, I want to grow this thing to a huge number within 3 or 4 years and sell it. That was never my desire to do. I wanted to build a legacy. I wanted to build a long-term, viable business that would do a couple of things. It would help provide employment for other people, that it would help develop other people, whether they chose to stay in my business long-term or not. I felt like there's some things I could teach young people as employees. And then the other part was, providing for my family. But my goal was not to make, millions of dollars and spend this thing over a few years like a lot of pest control companies do. They're trying to go for the big home run, knock it out of the park and get out. And that was never my goal. So that, having a long-term vision of what you want is extremely helpful in how you actually operate the business.
I love it. I love it. Can you tell us a little more about your vision? It could be specifically about your 5-10-year plan, or more just about your vision for the company. Like, what is it that you've told us, you want to build this environment where people can trust, you want to offer a great service, you want to have a place where team members can grow and develop. What else? Tell me more about your vision for Nature's Balance.
When I started, I really wanted this to be a business that people would feel comfortable referring a friend or a neighbor to. Yeah. That was kind of my goal. I just had a bad feeling about door-to-door sales. I had a bad feeling about, alternative ways to get customers, and trying to lock people into a contract.
Just pushy and all that,
And all the stigma that goes with the industry. I just was totally opposed to that. So I said, okay, I'm going to be the antithesis of that. I'm going to try to figure out some other way. So the long-term vision was really create this viable company that people trust, respect, and will refer to their friends. They'll be comfortable, recommending us. And that's how we've built the business, through loyal customers that say, you know what, these guys do a great job. They're honest. If they can't fix it the first time, give them another chance. They'll come back. We're dealing with nature. Nature's unpredictable, so you can't always expect it's going to be handled on the first time. But again, our customers have been very, very loyal, and that's been part of our success.
Because you had that vision from day one. You're not in it for the short term. You're building relationships. You're relationship focused. Right. And so therefore it just gets better and better because you get to know them more, and there's a genuine, caring about each person.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got people that are great friends that we communicate with outside of business. They've become friends.
Wow, I love that. Can you share with us one of your hardest moments as being the president of Nature's Balance? Does any moment come to mind that just got you? And this is for anyone, but sometimes I get the most out of interviews where I hear some of the fails, right?
Yeah.
I walk away, I say, wow, because it's about how they pick themselves up, that process that really empowers me. So any epic fails that you could think of, or hard moments?
I don't know if this is epic or not, but it was a hard moment for me, and it was fairly early on. So this was a client, a fairly high-level, visible client in Park City. I won't tell the name of the business, sure. But it was a commercial client, and they had been using us for probably 2 years. Okay. Felt like we had gone above and beyond. We really, really focused on providing great customer service for them. There was a change in leadership at that organization, and one day I got a phone call. Actually, it wasn't even a phone call. We went to do the service at this client and found out that we had been replaced. They didn't even call us. They just said, you guys are out, these guys are in. And I took that very personal, and I was like, whoa, what did we do wrong? So I immediately called the new owner or the new leader at this business and said, look, I'd just like to get some understanding about where we went wrong. And he said, well, it's just it's not personal, it's business. And I said, well, I do take this personal because I really, really worked hard on your keeping your business pest free. And he said, we're just going to go in a different direction, and chose to do something else. But I took that very personal. So that was kind of hard, where you felt like you did everything you could do, and overnight, players changed and we were out. And life goes on. We picked up other new clients, but still kind of a sore spot because you take that kind of personal.
You do, and I know you're not alone. That took me many years to really. I still struggle with it some, but it's getting easier. Where I realized, like you said, it just could be there's a lot of factors here, and it's just maybe not a right fit at the right time. Right. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs who struggle with that too. we're going to switch gears as we slowly kind of wind down our time with Dan Stead of Nature's Balance. And let's talk a little bit about Nature's Balance. We've talked a lot about the why, the core behind Nature's Balance. We've talked about the vision and giving back and all these things. But we didn't really talk too much about what is Nature's Balance. So I understand Nature's Balance. They're a local pest control company. They have a desire to be trusted. They do good work. Dan's mentioned a few times, look, when you're working with nature, there's a lot of variables and we don't have control over all of them. So the best that we can do as entrepreneurs or he can do is say, if something doesn't quite meet what you're looking for, something goes wrong, we're still there. We're going to fix it. And that's what I'm hearing is the guarantee. And that's all you really can guarantee.
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about specifically about maybe your programs? Just give us an overview of what you're offering for anyone who may not have Nature's Balance and may be looking for what Dan's offering.
Ete, one of the things, again, back to my vision is I wanted to be different. I wanted to kind of separate ourselves from what everybody else is doing. So early on, we decided we wanted to be as eco-friendly as possible. What does that mean? Well, it means we try to use the minimum amount of product that would be disruptive to nature, but still get the job done.
Yep.
Now, what that means is we can still use hard stuff. We can still use hard chemicals if that's what's required. Right. But our goal is to be as minimalistic as possible, to leave the smallest footprint for humans, for pets, for other surrounding organisms, that it doesn't disrupt the balance of nature. And so that's why we're using botanical oils. We'll use other methods other than poisons. We have traps. We have other methods that's going to address the problem. That's not always the quickest and easiest, and it's also not always the cheapest, but we feel it's the right thing to do for families and for our environment. So that's kind of in a nutshell what makes us different. Now, as far as the services that we offer, we'd like to call ourselves a full-service pest control company. But what does that mean? Well, that means we take everything from ants to earwigs to box elder bugs to spiders. We can handle all of those things, but we also handle mammals. So we handle raccoons and skunks. We handle mice, voles, and we have either individual a la carte ways to deal with those. You could do a one-time treatment, or most of our clients choose to want to be preventative, and they don't want to have these be an issue throughout the year. So we have different options that we make available to clients that want to have that preventative service, and they don't have to worry about it. We're there in between services if they need us at no additional cost. So that's kind of what makes us different. The other thing is, again, there's no long-term contracts. We don't require people to sign on for 2 years or 3 years, and no penalties for canceling. My approach, and has always been, and I've told clients this, look, if we can't solve your problem, you need to fire us anyway. It's just, you don't want to do business with someone who has got you locked into something and yet you still have problems.
Right.
That just leaves that's a bad thing for the customer and the client.
You don't feel like anytime I'm in that situation that you got to sign a contract, just a flag goes off. Wait a minute. Like I feel like you might not be honest, So I love this idea of no contracts. Hey, look, we're going to give you the best service we can give you, and if it doesn't work out for some reason, please go. I don't want you to stay and be unhappy. Exactly.
I guess the other thing I'd mention is that a lot of companies are kind of set up on a quarterly service schedule that they come every 3 months, and the reason for that is really based on having a flat revenue. They want to make sure they're getting money year-round, whether there's a need or not. And one of the things that we've chosen to do is to really take care of problems when insects and spiders start to become active. So our programs, at least for spraying for insects and spiders, really start in the spring, and then they'll go through the fall. But in Utah, the climate dictates that their cold-blooded insects and the cold-blooded spiders don't exist. They either go dormant or they die when the cold weather comes. So we don't do recurring services in the middle of January when there's 4 feet of snow on the ground. It just doesn't make sense. Now, other companies will tell you still need that.
Yeah.
We found that's not the case.
So in winding down, I just want to kind of sum this up. Just an incredible story of essentially being unemployed and not in a great spot, and at times feeling overwhelmed and hopeless to starting a business in a brand new industry. Having to learn all the ins and outs of that, and even business in general. And there's a lesson of hope there. There's a lesson of keep going. There's a lesson of things work out when you do good things. And as I hope you've picked up during this conversation, Dan runs his business off of integrity. That's really at the core of everything I'm hearing. It's about doing the right thing. He's not going to sell you services you don't need. He's not going to make you stay in something you don't need. He wants a relationship with his clients that is long lasting, and it's not about the short play, buy them, grow it, sell it. And I think that back to my intro, that is kind of how it comes across to me. So I would say congratulations on building such a great company.
Thanks.
I would say I'm impressed. I use their services. I think Dan's just an incredible person, and the energy comes off of him. And I love that he said earlier, you have to set the tone as the leader. And so when you have a leader who has a great energy, who cares about people, and there's a bigger picture behind everything, that gets pushed down into the team. And that's how you have a great company. Anyway, there's going to be a link below if anyone has any interest in talking to Dan. Whatever it is, you want to talk to him about it. You can reach out, ask him more about his programs. You can talk to him about how he built his company. There is a great story here. And I'll just ask Dan, is there any last thing before we shut this one down that's on your mind that maybe we didn't talk about, maybe I didn't ask?
No, Ete, I think you've done a great job asking some very interesting questions, and I just would want to encourage anybody that's considering being an entrepreneur. It's a two-edged sword. There are some great benefits that come from it, just fantastic opportunities, but there are some hard times, and you make some trade-offs with your personal time, and your family has to make some trade-offs as well. But I wouldn't go back. I'd never go back to corporate America based on what I know now. So it's been a great ride.
Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today, and I want to thank Dan for coming out and spending time with us. And I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode.